I wanted to open up the discussion now a little bit between the participants and also to reflect back on some of the questions that we've received earlier. There were a couple of good questions about advice, and this is of real interest to the Nefertiti project because, as I mentioned at the outset, Nefertiti is looking to support new entrants and to encourage people who haven't considered a career in agriculture to look at it as an option, either young people or not so young people. And so a couple of people asked Lynn Cassells what sort of advice you needed. So in addition to your own forestry and tree growing expertise, where did you get the wider advice from about different species, locations, and did you have any specific advice from certain organisations that you might pass on? And I'll ask Lynn Cassells if you could reflect on that first, but maybe Lynn White, you might also have some thoughts. Thanks, Lynn.
Okay, so I suppose the first thing to clarify is that a lot of our experience in working with trees was very practical. So it was everything from planting to felling to coppicing to collarding. You know, we had like, you know, maybe 7-8 years practical experience on the ground. So we know trees, but what we didn't have experience in until we moved here was, I guess, the bureaucratic side of things. So the paperwork, the applications, all that sort of stuff. So the question about species, how did we try to decide what species to plant? There's a huge amount of Scottish forestry resources that are available for the general public online. So back in the day, Lynn White will be able to clarify this for me, but back in the day it used to be called Forestry Commission Map Viewer. I think if you just type in Google Scottish Forestry Map Viewer, it'll come up with like an online GIS system. And what you can do is basically you can kind of zone into your area, and it has loads and loads of layers. And so you can look at things like, you know, what's the sort of the soil type here in my area is supposed to be, and that uses an overlay from, you know, research that James Hutton have done, for example, or it will model what kind of woodland is right for your area, or it will say, you know, oh, there used to be trees here in the past because it was done in a survey of native woodland back in the day. And, you know, so there's a huge amount of information that you have to put into your application that you can actually access yourself. It just takes a little bit of finding it, but it's all there. So that's how we species we're going to plant, because we looked at the soil type, we looked at the climate, we looked at the geology, all on the Scottish Forestry Map Viewer. So we did it ourselves because we could do that for free. And we fell into what was called a W17 category woodland, and therefore that was what modelled the species choice that we decided to plant. So that's how we kind of went about it. In terms of organisations, so I think what I have to say to people is, really, if you know your land, have confidence in the fact that you know your land best. So look at what's growing around. That'll give you an indication of what grows well. There will inevitably be some missing species because of, you know, possibly previous deforestation or overgrazing or whatever. But have confidence that you know what's going on in your ground. And whenever you approach organisations for advice, you know, go to the ones that are going to give you the free advice first. So generally that will be, you know, the Woodland Trust or your woodland officer. And, you know, we generally found that we were able to develop a really positive working relationship whereby we were the experts because we were the experts on our ground. We knew our ground. But they could help guide us through the kind of the sections of the application, which kind of said, okay, you need to do a little bit of that in there, or you need to say this in that section. So really, it's kind of having confidence that you actually know what's best. If you know your land and you know nature, and then get those people around you to just support you. And it is possible to put in the application that way.